So we've been talking about the clans of Naruto, and thus far we've covered some illustrious ones like the Nara and the Uchiha. We've even covered the Sarutobis, who will most likely have had 2 Hokages in office before Boruto is over. But what about the less illustrious families, the ones that do the dirty work? Well, that's what today's video is about. One of my favorite clans in the history of Naruto, the Aburame Clan. And speaking of doing the dirty work, covering this clan might be considered doing the dirty work, but that's what I'm here for. You know what you're here for? That's to hit that like button and that subscribe button and that noti button so you can know when I post, and what it's about. If you love my content, I post 3 times a week. Some people think I only post once a week. You could get 3 times more me. So I know I said that the Aburame clan were not prestigious and they did the dirty work of Konoha. But here's the thing, the Aburame clan actually exists to the 4 royal clans of Konoha. 4 noble clans, not royal clans, I'm sorry. And I'm sure this is the first time that a lot of you are hearing about the 4 noble clans of Konoha. So just so I don't get the question, those 4 clans are the Akamichi, the Aburame, the Hyuga, and the Uchiha. And while conventional knowledge might say that of those 4 families, they're not the strongest, I believe otherwise. The Aburames just aren't pretty. They didn't get a lot of screen time. They weren't, tall and sexy like the Senju or dark and sullen like the Uchiha. No, they have bugs. In fact, Aburame children, actually not children, Aburame babies, the second they're born are offered to large groupings of bugs like a hive. And if those bugs identify an affinity with the baby, they will crawl into the baby and live inside of that baby for the entirety of that baby and the bug's life. This is called symbiosis. The bugs survive on the chakra of the host, and the host uses the bugs for offensive, defensive, or scouting means. But I mean, how do the bugs get in? How do they get out? Is it only your mouth or your ears or other orifices? Nope. Essentially, apparently everybody in the Aburame clan is covered in hundreds of holes that can release things the size of insects, which when you think about it is insanely powerful, because let's say you have Shino and you have him tied up, right? Cool. He's not going to be tied up for long because he can release bugs from his elbow, his back, his leg. You can't cover all the holes he can release bugs from that could then subsequently break him out of said bondage. And that works because Aburames can use their bugs for ninjutsu-like attacks without using chakra, because the bugs are constantly feeding on their chakra, or weaving hand signs. Because they're all fed on the same chakra, that being the host and the insect, they actually share a neural link that they can communicate with. And since we're talking about covering up Aburames, there's actually a reason as to why almost every single Aburame you've ever seen is incredibly covered in clothes and also wears sunglasses. Most of the insects that the Aburames use are either crepuscular, meaning that they're more active at dawn or dusk, or nocturnal. Because of this, Aburames try to limit how much light comes into their bodies in order to, not upset the bugs. And not upsetting the bugs is very important considering how the Aburame use them. More often than not, the Aburame are involved in espionage. In fact, the Aburame clan makes up the majority of the Anbu and the Root. This is why I said they do the dirty work of Konoha earlier, because I literally mean they assassinate people. But it's only because their skills work so well for assassination and espionage. To go over in a general sense of what the Aburames can accomplish with their bugs, because we're going to go into more specific details on specific ninjutsus later, they can place a female bug on a target and then, using the male bugs in their body, track the hormones of said female bug to find their target wherever they are. And it's a bug. That person isn't going to find that little tracker chip you have on them. Or maybe let's say they're not tracking somebody, but they want to find somebody. So they send out a massive amount of insects that can scope out areas and then report back to them with intel. Imagine if every mosquito you ever saw was spying on you. You know how effective that would be? And that's life living opposed to the Aburames. The bug that is often used for espionage is the Shokaichu. This is because the Shokaichu can detect chakra signatures and follow it. That's literally perfect for espionage. If it knows your chakra signature, it can follow you through a crowd. But since we're talking about the bugs that the Aburames use, let's talk about the bugs that the Aburame use, because there's a lot of them. Let's go alphabetically. This works perfectly because the first bug up is the Pikachu, and the Pikachu is a perfect espionage bug. The Pikachu looks a bit like if a termite grew an elephant's nose, but here's the thing, that elephant's nose gives it a sense of smell better than a ninja dog. If this Pikachu gets a scent of something like of mine, let's say, gets a piece of fabric from this shirt, it can track that scent across countries. Imagine the way that police dogs are used in the real world. They track scents, but they have to follow that scent. They only can do it for a certain amount of time or distance, and sometimes over water, they'll get lost. This is not a problem with the Pikachu. The only problem is they're heavily endangered and only the females can do this. So it's really hard to find them, and so they don't get used that often. Next up, we have the Kidaichu, which is honestly one of the scariest bugs in the history of this show. Shino is the only known user of the Kidaichu, and you'll understand why in a second. The Kidaichu start really small, almost microscopic, and they live in Aburame Clan members' bodies, feeding off their chakra. But here's the thing, they're very particular about how much chakra they can get. If you, I don't know, accidentally feed too much chakra to a Kidaichu, it will begin to consume all of the chakra in your body, goes on a gluttonous rage and grows in size over and over again until it's the size of a boulder. So any Aburame Clan member has to constantly maintain exactly how much chakra they are feeding to the Kidaichu, otherwise they will grow and explode them from the outside.
Why would they take these anywhere? Why would they put these in their own people?
Great question. Because if you get one of those bugs into an enemy and they don't know exactly how much chakra to feed a Kidaichu, it's GG's. We see this work perfectly when Shino gets the Kidaichu bugs into a Ten-Tails clone. Now, the Kidaichu are not to be mixed up with the Kikaichu. The Kikaichu are kind of the base attack of the Aburames. Anytime you've ever seen Shino shoot out bugs, or any member of the Aburame clan shoot out bugs in a massive net or in the form of a fist, those were Kikaichu. They're small, flight-ready kind of beetles. But just because they don't have special abilities like incredible scent or the ability to grow in other people's bodies does not mean that the Kikaichu is not insanely powerful. The Kikaichu is used for broad sweeping attacks. Aburames aren't known for precision. They cut off your routes and they close in a massive bug storm around you that will slowly devour your chakra until you are either weakened or dead. Large swarms are effective in that matter, and small swarms are good at sneaking past guards to get into people's bodies to slowly seep away their chakra without them even noticing. But let's say the enemy does realize you're there. Well, the Kikaichu can act as a myriad of different things in order to help you fight said enemy. They can become a shield to block attacks, a fist to launch attacks. They can even break down chakra-based attacks like ninjutsu by swarming them and eating the chakra that comprises said ninjutsu. Essentially, think Gaara, but with chakra nullification ability. But let's say you're not in a fight. You can use the Kikaichu to latch on to things, to increase your range to grab things. It's just like an extra set of extendable arms. Or if you get poisoned, the Kikaichu can find the poison in your body and extract it. And in the anime, these bugs have been shown to be able to fly into allies and distribute the chakra that they have in themselves, replenishing the chakra of allies. But let's say you've gotten into a terrible situation. The Kikaichu can fly out of your body and emit chakra all over an entire battlefield. This makes it impossible to sense your chakra signature for sensor type ninjas, allowing an almost guaranteed escape. Oh, and also they're immune to genjutsu, so they can snap their host out of genjutsu pretty much whenever they need to. Because remember, they're all on the same chakra network, which means essentially these bugs act as a tailed beast and are able to disrupt the chakra of their host in order to snap them out of genjutsu. So, you know, genjutsu and ninjutsu resistance. Listen, if Shino had gone on the Sasuke retrieval arc, they would have gotten Sasuke back. 3 more bugs to go. Up next, we got the Kochu. This bug was seen in Itachi Shinden Book of Dark Night. And it's actually the thing that killed Shisui. It wasn't Shisui plucking out his eyes and falling into the waterfall that killed him. No, it was an Aburame, but we'll get into that later. For now, let's talk about the Kochu. The Kochu bug is about the size of a mosquito, but it produces a poison that once they get into your skin, paralyzes the target and then kills them a short time later. Craziest thing about this ability is that the poison disappears after the person who's been poisoned dies, making it untraceable on autopsies. Because of this bug's abilities, you're not gonna guess who loved it and used it all of the time. It was Danzo. He actually had a quip about the Kochu bug, and that was that it was as imperceptible as a mosquito, but as deadly as a scorpion. Like bro, okay, imagine a mosquito just flies onto you and burrows into your skin, and then you're dead. There's people in the Aburame clan who can just do that. And the craziest part, that's not even the scariest bug that the Aburames have. No, that honor goes to the Rinkaichu. The Rinkaichu are nano-sized. Yeah, you heard me right. Nano-sized. Smaller than your cells. And above that, they're venomous. The only ever on-screen seen user of these bugs is Taruna Aburame, a member of the Root and one of Danzo's personal favorites. Essentially, some Aburame clan members are able to take these bugs into themselves. Only some Aburame clan members are able to take them though, because once again, you know, these bugs are nano-sized and venomous. So they can reject the person they're entering, and then they will literally eat that person inside out. I say that because let's say you have successfully grafted to this bug. You can then kind of activate it, and it will turn all of your skin purple. That purple skin is the Rinkaichu coming to your skin's surface. Then, if you touch anybody else, anywhere, that bug, the Rinkaichu, will transfer onto their skin. And you know what they do once they get into somebody else's body? They destroy it on a cellular level. Your cells literally melt as the bugs grow up whatever part you've been touched on. It's excruciating. But how is the user not affected by the venom, you ask? Well, that's because the user who's able to bind to the Rinkaichus, their body will create an antibody to that venom that stops them from having their cells destroyed. It's actually stated that Shino could have taken this bug on, but refused to do so because of its excruciatingly violent nature. I mean, think about that. All you have to do is touch an opponent and it goes through clothing. And then boom, that person becomes a puddle. The last entry on our list isn't nearly as scary as the last two. It's the Shokaichu. This bug resembles a worm and is only ever seen being used by Muta Aburame. These bugs have the ability to burrow into the ground looking for chakra signatures. And if they find any, they crawl back up and report back to Muta. They're essentially just like Kikaichu, but underground. That's all the bugs that the Aburame use, at least that we know, but who are some important Aburame and what are their feats? I'm gonna talk about 3 of them. There's 7 Aburame clan members whose names we know, but there's only 3 that really need to be talked about. Those would be Shino, Yoji, and Taruna. I already teased what Yoji Aburame accomplished earlier, so let's start with him. Yoji Aburame is a novel-only character, which is still canon, by the way, from Itachi Shinden Book of Dark Night, the second of his 2 Shinden novels. Yoji is a member of the Root and a close confidant of Danzo. When Itachi and Shisui find out that the Uchihas want to plan a coup in order to dispose of the 3rd Hokage, they devise a plan to use the Koto Matsukame on Fugaku in order to change his mind. But before they do this, Shisui is called to a meeting with Danzo. It's at this meeting that Danzo reveals to Shisui that he knows exactly what his plan is and that that plan won't work to stop the coup, but simply delay it. It's at this point that Danzo utters one of the coolest lines in all of Naruto and says,
"Your eyes would be better served in my hand."
And it's at that point that Shisui feels his body stop being able to move. And Yoji Aburame, one of the Root's top assassins, walks out of the shadows. Yoji had successfully gotten Kochu bugs into Shisui without him even noticing. the same Shisui who was the youngest ever Anbu captain, the same Shisui who had a Mangekyo Sharingan ability so strong both sides of a coup wanted it for their own, and yet he never even saw it coming. And as he stood there paralyzed, Danzo plucked out one of his eyes. The pain of that eye getting plucked out was enough to snap Shisui out of his paralyzation, and he ran to go meet Itachi by the waterfall. It's there where he gives Itachi his other eye, but here's the thing. In the light novel, he tells Itachi he's already dead. He understands that this bug has poisoned him so deeply he will be gone within minutes. That's why he gives Itachi his other eye. That's why he falls into the waterfall. There was no other option for him. Yoji Aburame easily killed one of the strongest Uchiha members in history. That being said, a little bit later on, once Itachi has found out what happened and Shisui is already dead, Itachi is being trailed by Yoji Aburame because Danzo has said, hey, I don't really trust that guy. He seems like he was with Shisui. Please follow him. Itachi, being Itachi, understood that he was being followed and purposely led Yoji Aburame outside of the village. It's at that point, once he identifies they're far enough out of the village, that he turns around and puts all of the bugs in Yoji Aburame's body into Tsukiyomi. Itachi, obviously awaking his Mangekyo Sharingan with the death of Shisui. And as Yoji Aburame stands there frozen, Itachi, with his other eye ability, shoots Amaterasu at him and stands there and watches him as he burns to death. Obviously, this is canon, but the only problem with it in my book is that the bugs are technically supposed to be immune to genjutsu because their chakra networks aren't complex enough to fall under genjutsu, but maybe the Kuchu bugs are different. Regardless, next up is another person we talked about earlier, Taruna. Taruna Aburame is, believe it or not, another personal favorite of Danzo's, whose father, Shikoro Aburame, was the only other known user of the Rinkaichu. Unfortunately, Shikoro died when Taruna was very young, so Taruna had to move in with Shino's family. Shino and Taruna were inseparable as children, but unfortunately the bugs in Tarune's body were so powerful he couldn't control them, so he wasn't allowed to go to the ninja academy like Shino. Then one day, while Taruna and Shino were walking, Danzo approaches them both and asks if they would like to join the route. Shino, not wanting to live a life of isolation, said no, but Taruna, who wasn't allowed to go to the Ninja Academy, said yes. And it was here that he met his best friend on Earth, Fu Yamanaka. Danzo openly admitted that Fu and Taruna were the most skilled fighters in the entirety of the route. That's including Sai. So now we have a person who can use the Rinkaichu, can make their skin entirely venomous to the touch, and in the anime create clouds of Rinkaichu that can spread over vast areas, and anybody who that touches or inhales it will literally melt from the inside out. And we gave them root training. That is an incredibly powerful person, especially considering that he can use other insects from the Aburame clan. He was so powerful, in fact, when him and Fu fought Toby, he was able to touch his right arm while the Rinkaichu mode was activated and made Toby cut off his arm. Toby then, used Kamui to put them both in the Kamui dimension and then put them under a Sharingan-based genjutsu, and then he brought them back to make them sacrifices for Edo Tensei, but that's neither here nor there. And when he got reincarnated in the Fourth Great Ninja War, he gave a large part of the Shinobi Alliance and Naruto, who was in Jin Cloak, a legitimate run for their money. In fact, it was only Shino that could beat him. Shino is most likely the most powerful member of the Aburame clan ever. He was probably the strongest genin in Naruto proper. I mean, he never lost a fight. He beat Zaku, he beat Kankuro. Kankuro being one of the most powerful ninja in the entirety of Naruto proper, not Shippuden. During the war, he was able to wipe tons of white Zetsu, who, by the way, are Jonin level threats, and took out Ten Tails clones. He knows Earth, Fire, and Yang release. He's also capable of summoning jutsu, which he uses to summon a bug, but a really big one. Shino is said to be hypothetically able to use every bug that is in the Aburame's ownership, but we only ever see him use the Bikochu, the Kidaichu, and the Kikaichu. And you know what he doesn't get nearly enough credit for? His intelligence. Of the Konoha 12, he is probably the second smartest. And when the first smartest person is Shikamaru, that is not a count against you. He's technically never lost a fight that we've seen, and he accomplishes this by being several steps ahead of all of his enemies. The only fight you could possibly say he lost is in Boruto, when he fights a fully Snake Sage transformed Mitsuki. And at the end, Mitsuki sees that he could have used other bugs and killed him. So that is to say that Shino is stronger than a perfect Snake Sage. We gotta start putting respect on the Aburames. And that's it. So why don't you go ahead and put some respect on me by liking this video, subscribing to the page, and hitting that noti bell, because I want to tell you all about the dirty work done in Konoha, but I'm gonna need a little bit from you in exchange. Long story short, kids, if there's a quiet kid, seems a bit off in both the anime world and in the real world, reach out to them. Make that friendship. Might help you down the line.